A few years ago I started building in the G.I. Joe universe, and for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why, but I've been more interested in the bad guys than the good guys. So I have a lot of bad guy, evil bad guy tanks and things like that. The first one I built was the Hiss tank, which is the classic Cobra, like basic tank, which is the one down here. I wanted to give the Hiss I wanted to make a couple of improvements on my own, so I gave it a slightly more powerful turret and a little better armor for the poor guy who's sitting up there. Because the original Cobra vehicles didn't have a lot of protection for their people, and I wanted I care about my Cobra soldiers a little bit more. So I built that. This one here this is a more recent. This is the Stinger Jeep, and that one is as close as I could get to the original. So there I've really not made a lot of changes at all. It's more of a model. The other Hiss tank I had over in the other corner over there is just a variant, more of an APC version with a little machine gun on top, but space for more guys in the back. And if you see in the trees there's a little dark blue ATV, like a four-wheel. I forget what they're called. Like not a dirt bike, but a quad bike.
Yeah.
That's called the Ferret. That's another Cobra vehicle. And if you go further across the layout, there's a couple of light air vehicles. There's my take on the Trouble Bubble and the Fang mini helicopter. And over here, the slightly bigger, this is the Fang 2. And these are all fairly iconic Cobra vehicles that I've made some slight changes to, but I've tried to keep fairly close to the originals. This one here, this is the Asp. This is like a towed artillery piece. The gray tank-like thing there is the Maggot. If you go back to the light gray one, that's another one where I wanted to make a couple of improvements. So I've added a little more armor and that kind of thing for the Maggot. And there are two kind of black and dark green vehicles there, which are these are Night Viper variants of the Ferret and the Stinger, which I built over there, but I've just built them in different camouflage colors. Just added different colors to those for the particular soldiers who use those. And the other thing I can show you over there on that white table is the. You see, there's a gray turret there.
Sure.
I can put that turret on the Maggot to replace the basic artillery turret with an anti-aircraft turret.
So you got to switch it in and out, interchangeable a little bit.
Yeah, so that's like my flak version of the Maggot. So it's a nice way to build more vehicles without having to rebuild most of the vehicle. That makes sense.
So you've got a really interesting wide range of vehicles here. What do you use do you find photos online or reference to build these off of?
Well, I've been following the G.I. Joe universe through the comics especially, and partially the toys. In the 90s especially, and so a lot of my inspiration comes from things that I remember, like toys maybe I wanted and didn't have, or whatever, and toys I thought I could improve on, or just cool iconic Cobra vehicles that I thought were cool. So it's fun to be able to have something where I have the freedom to model something as closely as possible to a real vehicle, or make my own modifications to kind of make it my own, depending on my whims.
You can do whatever you want. It's Lego.
It's Lego. And in this very small realm of Lego, I clearly am the Cobra commander, since I get to do all this.
Definitely.
My main hopes for next year, as far as this stuff goes, is I should really have some good guy vehicles too, so they're not so outmatched. They're getting rescued by some other faction over here, but they should have a tank or two too, I think. So maybe that's next year.
Well, that's very neat. So you mentioned, I think you've been coming to events here in Virginia since 2001. Have you built military since the very beginning, or is this something you got into more recently? I
got into military probably about 8 years ago. I started out as a castle builder, and I tell myself that one day I will build a castle again. And one of the things I want to do is I want to build a castle on a hill with like raised, if you raise a castle up, you can build like a moat and a dry moat and have an underground dungeon and that sort of thing, and like a base, a cellar. And I have the hill already for that since I have this landscape. So the landscape can be used, doesn't have to be used for something like this. It can be used for any theme. In the past I've done landscapes using this landscape at a micro scale. So I've had little tanks much smaller that roll around, and I just take out the minifig scale elements like the bunkers and the houses and maybe replace them with micro scale buildings and houses, and then it just turns it into a totally different, so that little footbridge there, if I rebuilt it just very slightly and for microfig scale, that could be like a highway bridge.
Sure. Yeah. So that's the nice thing about the modular kind of thing. You can interchange that with all sorts of different builds.
That's the idea. It's I want to have a big medieval battle on something like this with waves of soldiers, and archers and knights. We've done the Napoleonic era battle on here too a few years ago with I think 1,000 or I think like lots and lots and lots of Napoleonic figs running around in formation.
That's awesome. Well, this is a great layout here. I really appreciate you showing this to us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.